Breaking tonight, the impeachment vote against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas failing in the House. House Republicans were pushing to impeach Mayorkas over his handling of the border crisis. Not tonight. It comes as immigration remains a top issue for voters. President Biden blaming former President Trump for derailing that bipartisan border bill in the Senate. The breaking details just coming in. We're live on Capitol Hill. Also tonight, the first parent to face charges related to a mass school shooting is found guilty in a stunning verdict. A jury convicted Jennifer Crumbley in connection to her son's deadly shooting rampage. We hear from a juror about the unanimous decision, the first of its kind trial setting a precedent in the U.S. Will more parents be found liable in the future? Trump loses the legal battle, a federal appeals court dealing a major blow to the former president's defense in the 2020 election interference case. The panel of judges ruling Trump is not immune to charges, going as far as saying he should be treated like an everyday citizen. Trump's response and what it could mean for the road ahead as he balances the campaign trail and the courtroom. State of emergency, California reeling from a deadly and destructive storm, record-breaking rainfall triggering dozens of water rescues. Outside of Las Vegas, 4 people rescued from an avalanche at a ski resort. More than 300 mudslides reported in the Los Angeles area. In San Diego, a tornado warning issued as the relentless system moved through. We hear from those left stunned by the force of this storm. Plus, orcas trapped. Heartbreaking images show a pod of killer whales stuck in a sea of ice near Japan. The Coast Guard warning it's a waiting game until that ice breaks up. We speak with a marine life expert about how this could happen and what can be done to set them free, if anything. And good evening. We have breaking news as we come on the air tonight. House Republicans failing to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. All Democrats voted against the impeachment articles, along with 4 Republicans. Those House Republicans claim the Homeland Security Secretary failed to enforce immigration laws. These are the ones who wanted to impeach him and breach public trust. The move widely refuted by Democrats, Mayorkas and President Biden, who argued the case was a pure political stunt. It comes as President Biden and former President Trump spar over immigration. Biden blaming Trump for urging lawmakers to tank the bipartisan border bill, which the Senate is set to take up tomorrow. All of this as immigration remains a high priority for voters with the 2024 presidential election just 9 months away. NBC's Ryan Nobles is live for us tonight. He starts off our breaking coverage. Ryan, you've been monitoring what's happened in the House, not exactly as Republicans had planned it.
That's exactly right, Tom. I mean, by every measure, this was a stunning development on Capitol Hill. Republicans have been pushing toward this impeachment vote of Alejandro Mayorkas for months. They held a very extensive investigation through the Homeland Security Committee. They called witnesses. They built a case by which they believe that Mayorkas was guilty of high crimes and misdemeanors because of his inattention to the border. They claim that he willfully ignored the law in adjudicating laws that were connected to the border, and that's what in part led to the migration crisis at the southern border. But it was an argument that, of course, no Democrat bought. They believed that this was nothing more than a political stunt. And there were even some Republicans who felt the same way. In fact, 3 Republicans definitively, Mike Gallagher, Tom McClintock, and Ken Buck of Colorado, all 3 of them said that they were going to vote no, and they made good on that promise by voting no tonight. A 4th member of Congress, a Republican, Blake Moore, ended up voting no as well. That was basically just to give Republicans the ability to bring the measure back up in the future. And already tonight, Tom, they are vowing that they will do that. You know, part of this is because of the tight margins between Republicans and Democrats in the House right now. And part of that is because of a special election that's going to take place next week in New York. That, of course, the seat to replace George Santos. But also Steve Scalise, who's the majority leader, is dealing with cancer and is being treated for cancer and is absent. If Steve Scalise were here tonight, it would have been a different outcome. Regardless, this is embarrassing for the new House Speaker, Mike Johnson, who was making this the centerpiece of their argument that Republicans were more concerned about the border than Democrats. That message obviously failing here tonight as the Homeland Security Secretary avoids being the first cabinet secretary in close to 150 years to be impeached by the House of Representatives.
Ryan, peel back the curtain a little bit, because you bring up Speaker Johnson and his first big embarrassment as Speaker here. I mean, do we know why Republicans brought this to a vote if they weren't 100% sure this was going to happen?
That is the million-dollar question here tonight, Tom. And we spent all day roaming the halls of the Capitol trying to make sure that Republicans knew they had the votes. But our own simple whip count demonstrated that they didn't. Both Ken Buck and Tom McClintock made it very clear that they were no's. We had another group of 4 or 5 House Republicans who just wouldn't tell us whether or not they were going to vote no. In fact, I saw Mike Gallagher walk out to the House floor right before the vote, and he refused to tell me if he was going to vote yes or no. If they're unwilling to tell us, then they must be unwilling to also tell the Speaker. The way that this normally works is that if you control the floor and it's something that you want to see passed, unless you know definitively that you have the votes, you do not put it on the floor. Mike Johnson chose to go a different path today. Either he didn't believe what he was being told or simply just had a problem with the math. The sum total of all of this is that Alejandro Mayorkas survives this impeachment vote. And then, Ryan, bring us up to speed on your latest reporting when it comes to the immigration bill in the Senate. It started out as a bipartisan bill. It feels like it no longer is, that Republicans have sort of ran away from this bill over the last few weeks. Yeah, I mean, this is something we've been tracking, Tom, for months. And the whole purpose that this package was put together, the 4 national security emergency prongs of Ukraine, Israel, the Indo-Pacific, and the border, was because the negotiators believed that there were enough members that cared enough about each one of these prongs that they'd vote the entire package through. And it was specifically that border component that was added to convince conservative Republicans to support Ukraine funding. They almost asked for it. They went to the table. They negotiated. The Democrats gave up a lot, major concessions that they would never give up under any normal circumstances. They presented the package, and Republicans just rejected it outright. First saying that it didn't go far enough, then even suggesting that it would make the situation worse. The sum total of all of this is that there is now not any sort of viable path toward a plan to secure the border right now, even though it is a crisis that Republicans say is their top issue, and one even Democrats believe needs to be addressed immediately. Ryan, before you go, is there enough time before the November election for the White House, for Republicans, Democrats, but it sounds like Republicans are going to get out of this business very soon, but is there enough time to pass another piece or any piece of meaningful legislation when it comes to the border? I asked the Senate Majority Leader that exact question here tonight, Tom. And I think the demonstration of the inability to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas demonstrates this. I'm not sure any legislation can pass this Congress right now because it is so dysfunctional. Ryan Nobles leading us off tonight with that breaking news from the Hill. Ryan, we appreciate all your reporting. We want to turn now to other major headlines that we're covering tonight, including the first of its kind case. The parent of a school shooter held criminally responsible for a mass shooting committed by their child. Jennifer Crumbley found guilty on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter in the deaths of 4 of her sons, classmates in 2021. Maggie Vespa has more on today's verdict and the emotional reaction.
Count 1 of
Tonight, an unprecedented verdict.
We find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
Jennifer Crumbley found guilty on 4 counts, 1 for each student her son killed, leaving the courtroom in handcuffs as the first parent in the U.S. ever convicted for their role in a mass school shooting committed by their child. The jury forewoman speaking out to NBC News.
It was very difficult. It wasn't an easy decision. The thing that really hammered it home is that she was the last adult with the gun.
After the verdict, family members of those 4 students hugging prosecutors.
The moment you heard the verdict, what went through your mind?
Well, that I can breathe.
Craig Schilling lost his 17-year-old son, Justin.
He loved life and he deserved to live it.
The historic verdict following 7 days of emotional testimony, culminating with Crumbley taking the stand in her own defense.
I wish he would have killed us instead.
Prosecutors suggested she was a negligent mom who ignored mounting red flags about her son's behavior.
She did not give him the help that he wanted.
The defense arguing Crumbley was an engaged parent.
No one could have expected this, including Mrs. Crumbley.
Legal experts say this case may have implications far beyond this courthouse.
Does this open the door for parents to be held accountable for mass shootings, school shootings in the future?
It absolutely does. I believe this will be used as persuasive precedent.
But for Steve St. Juliana, it's simply justice for his 14-year-old daughter, Hannah.
Anything you want to say to the jury?
Just thank you for using common sense.
And with that, Maggie Vespa joins us now live outside the courthouse in Pontiac, Michigan. Maggie, talk to us about the next step here, because now the shooter's father is set to be tried next.
Yeah, Tom, exactly. They split up those trials on purpose. So he's coming up next. His trial is set to begin on March 5th, and he faces the exact same charges, 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter for the 4 classmates. His son has been convicted of killing in that deadly rampage. It's also worth noting Jennifer Crumbley's sentencing date is scheduled now to take place after that. That's set for April 9th. And if sentenced to the maximum, she could face up to 15 years for each of the 4 counts. Tom?
Okay, Maggie Vespa for us. Maggie, we thank you for that. For more on this unprecedented verdict and what it means for the future of prosecuting the parents of mass shooters, I'm joined tonight by Sarah Azari. She's a criminal trial attorney and host of the true crime podcast, The Presumption. And by Dr. James Allen Fox. He's a criminologist at Northeastern University. He oversees the Associated Press, USA Today, and Northeastern University's mass killing database, and the author of Extreme Killing, Understanding Serial and Mass Murder. Okay, Doctor, thanks for joining us. Sarah, though, I'm going to start with you. This is the first of its kind trial. Do you think the verdict was appropriate?
Absolutely, Tom. Good to join you. You know, I'm a defense attorney, and all along I've been saying is that this mother is complicit. So it's not only appropriate, but it's significant. It's significant because I think it sends a message across that you can't hide behind being, you know, an overwhelmed motherhood when you're this criminally negligent. This, you know, the standard of proof obviously is beyond a reasonable doubt. It's the highest standard of proof, but the behavior, you know, was even higher in terms of egregiousness here. So I think that, you know, this verdict is not an indictment on gun control. It's an indictment on criminally negligent parenting. So I think it's absolutely appropriate. The evidence was overwhelming.
Yeah, talk to me about the evidence. What do you think swayed the jurors towards guilt?
You know, I think it was the totality, but if I were to pick one thing, I think that drawing of Ethan with a gun and then the phrase blood everywhere and then all the red flags for months and the ample time and opportunity that this mother had to get help for Ethan and didn't. Instead, she was tending to horses and an extramarital affair. I mean, all of this is, it must, I mean, I think as a juror, I'd be angered at this, you know, and this is not just, oops, you know, I failed, I did the best I could. This is like, come on, woman, you know, you have to make sure that your kid is safe as a parent, but also is safe around others. And she, you know, I think her conduct is clearly egregiously criminally negligent.
Dr. Fox, I want to turn to you now. I think no doubt this case and this verdict is going to have repercussions across the country, especially in the conversations and the way law enforcement looks at these cases. My question to you is, do you think at all it will dissuade future possible mass shooters from carrying out these crimes? And just listen to me here for a second. Sometimes you see these mass shooters and they have no emotion whatsoever. But sometimes, like in the issue of Parkland, they're crying like children because they are children. And they think about sometimes their loved ones and they think about their parents. So I just wonder if this verdict in that situation may dissuade other mass shooters from committing crimes.
So this is the verdict is in this case is largely because of the fact that there were 4 people killed. If there was 1 person killed, I'm not so sure this same verdict would have happened, or even the prosecution. And certainly her behavior was extreme in terms of negligence. But the other element here, and this is where the message should be sent, is that a 15-year-old should not be given a gun, no matter how much he wants one. That's, I think, is a critical part here. You know, we have laws regarding the age when someone can buy a gun. So essentially, this is a straw purchase. And in fact, you can look at, say, even the Columbine shooting case where there was prosecution of an older teenager who purchased a gun for the shooters because they were too young to obtain the gun that they used. So I think that's a critical issue.
Dr. Fox, as far as
to say this, in terms of deterring other parents, the most likely thing to happen if you're allowing your son to have access to a gun and not paying attention to the warning signs, the most likely thing to happen is they'll kill you or themselves. And if that doesn't deter a parent from acting responsibly, then the idea that the criminal justice system might punish them with a 15-year sentence is not going to be a deterrent.
Dr. Fox, but what do we know about the mental makeup of some of these shooters? These you know, they're school shooters, but a lot of times they're kids. I mean, do they have relationships where they have some type of affection for their parents, you know? And I just wonder, this first of its kind case, if that will play into the scenario, because we know that school shooters study other school shootings.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's an attempt to punish a parent, if that's what you're suggesting. And there's all different situations. There are some school shooters who have good relationships at home, and then others, who, of course, who don't. In fact, there are some school shooters who killed their parents.
Right.
The Adam Lanza, Sandy Hook, can't blame her because she's dead. He killed her before he killed 26 at school. The shooter in Thurston High in Oregon killed his two parents before going on a rampage at school. So sometimes it's a more generalized anger in the child that spills not only to the school but also onto the parents.
Sarah, what does this do now for the case for the father?
Well, look, you know, I think the father has a slightly different set of facts. I don't think he was involved as much with the school and the warnings, but he did buy the gun. You know, he did take him and buy the gun. And we have to remember, it's the same jury pool. It's the same courthouse where his father is going to be tried. I would want to know, if to the extent these jurors are going to talk, exactly what swayed them, what evidence really mattered. And that father might want to see if the prosecution will offer him some sort of a plea deal. I think given this verdict, he should really reconsider, you know, his decision to go to trial.
Talk to me about the appeal here, right? Because this is the part that I found somewhat interesting. They can't appeal, or at least she's not going to appeal until she knows what the verdict is with the father?
I think you have to file a notice of appeal. Every state has laws about the statutory time frame for that to preserve your right to appeal. But you can certainly decide whether or not to move forward with it at a later time. But I think she needs to file a notice of appeal so that she doesn't lose that right should she decide to appeal this. And then, of course, her sentence is a different story. Some of the stuff that didn't sway this jury, like being this overwhelmed mother, might make a difference in terms of a mitigating circumstance at sentencing. And, of course, the prosecution will come in with aggravating factors. But at the end of the day, I don't think she's getting the 60 years. I think she's looking at a concurrent sentence of max 15.
Dr. Fox, is this outcome something that law enforcement and parents who have been the victims of school shootings wanted, that parents that are negligent, or at least a jury sees them negligent, should be held accountable?
Sorry, I missed part of the question. I'm sure there's a desire to hold someone accountable, in addition to Crumbley himself, who pled guilty. But let me point this out, that school shootings like this are still rare events. We have a couple a year where we have multiple victims killed. It's still rare, fortunately. But the behavior of a child, a troubled adolescent, who even admires mass shooters, who fantasizes violence, that's fairly common, unfortunately. And the most likely thing that a parent would face if their child is acting out like this or has warning signs like this is that they'll commit suicide. Teen suicide is very frequent, unfortunately. Thousands of kids a year. These crimes like this are rare. So if helping your child, not getting your help your child, the most likely thing that's going to happen is they're going to kill themselves. And if that's not an issue for you, then this certainly wouldn't be.
Dr. Fox, we appreciate your time. Sarah Azari, always a pleasure to have you on Top Story. We'll talk to you again soon, I'm sure. Next tonight in Washington, a federal appeals court ruled President Trump can stand trial after being accused of unlawfully trying to overturn the 2020 election. This comes after the court denied Trump's claim that he's immune from prosecution. NBC's Laura Jarrett has the details.
Former President Donald Trump today dubbed Citizen Trump by a 3-judge panel in Washington, ruling Mr. Trump is not immune from prosecution. The court saying we cannot accept that the office of the presidency places its former occupants above the law for all time thereafter. The Trump campaign saying he'll appeal the decision. Trump himself bemoaning the ruling, saying a president of the United States must have full immunity in order to properly function and do what has to be done for the good of our country. Special counsel Jack Smith charged Mr. Trump last summer for his efforts to reverse the 2020 election results and stop the peaceful transfer of power.
We will never give up. We will never concede.
Mr. Trump's legal team has been trying to get the charges tossed out for months, arguing he should be completely immune from prosecution for any acts he took as president.
The court today unpersuaded, saying we cannot accept former President Trump's claim that a president has unbounded authority to commit crimes that would neutralize the most fundamental check on executive power, the recognition and implementation of election results. The Trump campaign capitalizing on the court's decision today with a fundraising plea, as the Republican frontrunner frequently uses his legal setbacks as fuel for his latest White House bid.
If you have a president that doesn't have immunity, he's never going to be free to do anything because the opposing party will always indict him as soon as he leaves the White House.
With today's ruling, Mr. Trump's only hope at avoiding trial is for the Supreme Court to find he is immune, which would have major implications in the other legal cases he faces as well.
Laura Jarrett joins us now in studio. So, Laura, you mentioned it there at the end of your report. His next step, the former president, is to go to the Supreme Court and appeal this. When would that happen, and how does that affect his timeline?
He's got to do it fast, Tom, because the Court of Appeals has essentially tied his hands by saying he has until Monday to go to the Supreme Court and ask them to put a pause on this order. And then if he does that, everything will stay frozen. But if he doesn't go to the Supreme Court by Monday and get what he wants, then this trial is back on.
Okay, I want to put up the calendar for our viewers, the political calendar and some of the cases now as well. So when we look at this, it's going to start to collide at some point. Do you
it already is.
Do you think these trial dates stick, or do some of these move?
So I think the hush money trial, the one that's here in New York, it's a state case, relatively simple. It's about whether or not he falsified his business records before the 2016 election. We all remember that issue about Stormy Daniels. That, ironically, could be the first one that actually goes to trial. We've had so much focus on these federal cases. Obviously, there's also the election interference case in Georgia. No clear date on when that will go. There's the case about what happened with the classified documents after he left office. No clear date about whether that will go in May. It's the hush money one in March that might actually go first. And then this election interference one in D.C. might be right behind it later this summer, Tom.
Okay, Laura Jarrett covering it all for us, as always. Laura, we appreciate that. We turn now to the deadly weather conditions out west. California residents working to clean up after heavy rainfall brought landslides, mudslides, and flooding to the region. Look at this video. Debris flow in Studio City tonight, damaging numerous homes and forcing the evacuation of a neighborhood there. And that wet winter weather, unfortunately, not letting up in California, with millions still under flood watches. Let's get right over to NBC Los Angeles reporter Alex Roger in Brentwood. Alex, thanks for joining us tonight. I know the message had been to Los Angeles residents to stay inside, and we're looking behind you there. We see the reasons why.
Yeah, Tom, we've seen several neighborhoods hard hit by this ongoing storm in Southern California. I want to step out of the way and show you what we're looking at here in Brentwood. We have watched city crews here all day work to clean up and remove 2 eucalyptus trees that fell early this morning and took down power lines. But you can't fully appreciate and recognize how big of a mess they had on their hands till you see some of our aerial video that was overhead earlier today. These trees, 2 of them, 80 feet apiece, that fell to the ground early this morning. Thankfully, amazingly, really, no one was hurt here. We spoke with one woman, a house sitter, who was in her vehicle as the second tree crashed to the ground, and she told us that she watched it. She stepped out, was okay, but she's thankful to be able to tell that story. We just got word from the power department that there's 3,000 people nearby that are without power, but this is just one of several scenes that we've seen in the city of Los Angeles and beyond. I wanted to tell you about some numbers that we have as we bring you back out to the ground here and show you some of these city crews. They say that there's been more than 250 fallen trees in Los Angeles alone, nearly 160 reported potholes, 300 plus mudslides, and 35 buildings that need inspections due to mudslides. So it's really been a mess for several days here, and we're going to get some new information, some new numbers coming in at 5 o'clock Pacific time. But you're looking live at what we see here in Brentwood, and we're going to be continuing to follow this storm that's continues in Southern California.
You know, these pictures are devastating that you're showing us. Before you go, I know more rain is on the way. Is LA ready for this, and can it handle more precipitation?
I think there's a lot of concern tonight that this ground is so saturated now. I mean, this is a region known for sunshine. It has rained for almost 2 days straight. The ground is saturated. Even when it gets sunny and returns to normal, there's still concern for mudslides. Thankfully, the 7-day forecast looks pretty good. But if there's even more rain in the near future, it could get worse. So there's some concern for many homeowners here in Southern California. Tom.
Alex Rogier from our powerhouse station on the West Coast, KNBC. Alex, we thank you for your reporting. As we mentioned, California is still bracing for more of that wet weather. So let's get right over to NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns, who joins us live in studio tonight. Bill, walk us through what you're looking at.
Yeah, 3 days of relentless rain. So we're now over 8 inches in downtown LA, almost at 8.5. This is 59% of their yearly rainfall in 3 days. I mean, that's pretty impressive stuff. Doesn't happen very often anywhere in this country. And it's still pouring. We still have downpour right over the top of Los Angeles. This hopefully will be one of the last ones. Here's a zoomed in view showing you the flood watches that are left. So we got about 26 million people still in flood watches. These will be dropped from many areas later tonight. Here's Manhattan Beach. Here's Santa Monica. Here's downtown LA. You can see the bright red and yellows, but there's nothing really behind this except scattered showers. I don't like to see this in the north of the Malibu Hills either. Some heavy downpours near Thousand Oaks. So there are some still trouble areas, and we could easily have mudslides because everything's just soaked and saturated. It won't take much, but we should only get another 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch in this area. And here's the good news towards the weekend. The storm moves out. Friday looks good. Saturday, the sun returns. Sunday looks great for the West Coast, too. So the recovery begins in earnest starting tomorrow.
Okay, Bill, we appreciate all that. We want to move on now to the Middle East, where tonight tensions are intensifying. Houthi rebels once again striking back, this time attacking 2 ships in the Red Sea. The U.S. firing back. NBC's Courtney Kuby takes us on an exclusive look on board a guided missile destroyer as aggression in the region escalates.
Tonight, Iranian-backed Houthi militias showing no sign of backing down, attacking 2 more ships in the Red Sea with 6 missiles causing minor damage, according to U.S. officials. After the U.S. and British military struck 36 Houthi sites in Yemen in an effort to deter Houthi attacks on ships. The U.S. Navy tasked with defending against them.
The weapon we're most concerned with is ballistic missiles.
Like the one that hit this ship, the Marlin Luanda, in January.
How would you describe the environment out here right now?
I'd say it's a pretty intense environment out here.
As captain of the USS Mason, Commander Justin Smith has to make a split-second decision to shoot down an incoming missile.
We're talking a matter of seconds here, but my decision space as commander's decision space on whether I'm going to engage that inbound threat, I have about 10 to 15 seconds of decision time.
The ship's spy radar first detects the missile launch hundreds of miles away. Sailors quickly put on their fire-resistant gear as they assess what was launched.
ISS says anti-ship ballistic missiles based off speed, altitude, and maneuvering. Inbound Mason.
And the U.S. fires its own missile to hit the incoming Houthi missile. Here in the ship's control room, they practice shooting down missiles over and over. In a rare interview, we spoke with the captain who runs Operation Prosperity Guardian, which defends against Houthi attacks.
I won't beat around the bush. This is a kinetic environment. The Houthis have caused a lot of mayhem out here.
Courtney Kuby joins us tonight from Bahrain. So, Courtney, you've been able to sort of see this military procedure up close. And I know you spoke with one of the commanders that mentioned the concern for these ballistic missiles. Can you explain to our viewers how these attacks from the Houthis are conducted and the damage it does to these cargo ships? Because I have to imagine they have no defenses. Do they even have enough hoses to put out the fires once they're attacked?
Yeah, that's right. And there were actually 6 anti-ship ballistic missiles fired towards 2 commercial ships today. And one of those missiles struck one of those ships. Fortunately, there was only minor damage. Now, the U.S. military and these allies who are in this region, in the southern Red Sea and out into the Gulf of Aden, they are working to defend against those kinds of attacks. But the reality is it's an enormous stretch of sea that they have to cover with a finite number of ships, and they simply cannot defend against all of these. The Houthis are firing these from inside their areas inside Yemen that they control, and there are a lot of different locations. Even after the multiple U.S. and British military strikes inside Houthi-controlled Yemen, officials say they still have a pretty significant amount of these ballistic missiles and their overall military capability still available to them. So the reality is, even with airstrikes, the Houthis continue to threaten and attack ships in the region. Tom.
Courtney Kuby reporting from Bahrain tonight. Courtney, thank you for that. We want to stay in the Middle East now and head to the war in Gaza, where fighting still rages on. More than 100 Israeli hostages remain in captivity. Today, the Qatari Prime Minister, alongside U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, providing updates on a potential deal to release those hostages, pause fighting between Israel and Hamas, and increase humanitarian aid to Gazan civilians. Those negotiations part of a joint effort in Paris between the U.S., Israel, Qatar, and Egypt to de-escalate this war. I want to bring in Raf Sanchez from Tel Aviv to walk us through the possible deal. Raf, get us up to speed here. Hamas has already responded to the framework. What is their reaction?
Tom, Hamas not saying definitively yes or no, but saying that they have studied this framework that came out of Paris, and they have changes. They repeated in a statement tonight their long-running demands. One, that any deal that leads to the release of hostages must also lead to the end of the war in Gaza. And two, that thousands of Palestinian prisoners, some of whom have convictions for terrorism offenses, be released from Israeli jails. Now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, under intense pressure from the far right of his government not to make concessions to Hamas, has said he is not prepared to agree to either of those terms. We did hear from President Biden at the White House earlier tonight. He said some of Hamas's demands are, quote, a little over the top. We don't know exactly what the detail he is referring to there. But Secretary of State Blinken landed here in Israel tonight. His motorcade actually passed our live shot position just a little while ago. He is meeting Prime Minister Netanyahu tomorrow, trying to close the gaps between the two sides and trying to get this deal over the line.
And then, Raf, you know, a headline that has been sort of making its rounds around here in the U.S. is from the Israeli intelligence suggesting that more than a fifth of the Israeli hostages in Gaza have been killed. How have they been able to sort of gather this intelligence, and what are Israelis saying?
Yeah, Tom, so 31 out of the roughly 130 hostages Israel now believes to have been killed. It is a difficult, it is a painful process trying to confirm the deaths of people whose bodies you can't reach because they are being held by Hamas. They rely on a combination of DNA evidence. If they found DNA inside of Israel that suggests that this person was killed on October 7th and their body was then taken into Gaza. Alternatively, they are listening very carefully to accounts of the 100 or so hostages who were freed under the last deal, trying to figure out who is alive, who is dead. Tom, Hamas made very clear on October 7th and ever since then, it sees these hostages as human bargaining chips through which to extract concessions from Israel. A dead hostage is not worth as much as a live hostage in this grim exchange rate. But Israel has made clear it is important to them to recover the bodies of these hostages, to give families closure, to be able to give them proper burials. And they do have a value to Hamas in these negotiations. Tom.
Raf Sanchez for us tonight. Raf, we thank you. Still ahead tonight, the frightening bank robbery in Florida. A suspect armed with a knife holding two people hostage inside a Bank of America. SWAT teams called in. How the situation finally came to an end. Plus, the new report on the door that blew off an Alaska Airlines plane mid-flight. It appears the bolts needed to secure the door were taken off and never put back on. We have more details. And a pod of orcas trapped in ice off the coast of Japan. Video capturing struggling to break free. What could have caused this and the potentially troubling news we're just getting from the region? Stay with us. We're back tonight with a troubling story out of Japan. New video shows a pod of at least 10 orcas stuck in icy waters, and it appears they're struggling to break free from the chunks of ice surrounding them. You see them right here. The orcas were first spotted by a local fisherman located off Japan's northern island, Hokkaido. To help us get a better understanding of this, we're joined by Howard Garrett. He's co-founder and board president of the Orca Network. Howard, thanks for joining Top Story tonight. I want to get right back to that video because it really sort of stops you in your tracks. You see these orca whales, and they're trapped in ice, and it's unclear what's going to happen to them. What's your understanding of the situation right now?
It is gut-wrenching to see them there. My understanding is that these are fish-eating orcas. By the group size, they look like resident type, which means that they chase salmon, probably up against the shoreline, and that the winds coming from the north, cold winds, are pushing those ice sheets up against that shoreline. So it's just packing in around them, and they were not able to get out of there.
Is it your understanding, it looks to be a dozen, maybe more of those whales, that nothing can be done There's no sort of ice cutting vessel that Japan can send out. The location, I understand, may be too remote, too hard to get to.
Time is of the essence, unless a big icebreaker can get in there real fast. But the winds continue from the north, and that Arctic ice is just piling up and piling up. And they were just gasping for breath with that little hole that they had. And I'm not sure that that hole is still there for them.
We know these killer whales are brilliant creatures, right? What is it about them that sort of is off in these situations? I know this has happened before, and every now and then you see whales that beach themselves. What do you think maybe happened in this situation? I understand you think they were hunting, but there's nothing that they can tell that they're taking too much of a risk in getting this close into the ice?
Well, yes, it's about the shape of the land and the weather events. That it's just that wind is coming in and blowing those ice sheets. And so it's a very dangerous operation for them at this time of year. It happened before, about 15 years ago, when 9 perished because they were trapped in the ice. It's just an unfortunate combination of circumstances that causes the ice to close in around them.
One local Japanese outlet is claiming the orcas are missing as of noon. If that is true, do you think the orcas have freed themselves, or do you think the news could be worse?
I am very concerned because they had so far to go. They can stay under for 15 or 20 minutes sometimes, but there were some calves, and so they wouldn't be able to stay under that long to get that far out of there. And it probably lengthened the distance to the open water, so that they probably weren't able to get out. I mean, I fear for the worst.
Howard Garrett, we hope you're wrong. We hope maybe these orcas are alive and we're able to free themselves. If we get that information, we'll definitely bring it to our viewers. We appreciate your time and for you joining us here on Top Story tonight. When we come back, we have an urgent listeria warning. The dairy products sold at major retailers, including Whole Foods, that have been linked to at least 2 deaths. What consumers need to know. Back now with Top Story's news feed, and we begin with the deadly standoff between police and an armed robbery suspect at a bank in Florida. Police say the suspect held 2 people hostage at knife point while trying to rob a Bank of America in Fort Myers. A witness told our local station the man also claimed he had a bomb. Police say a SWAT sniper eventually shot and killed the suspect. No one else was hurt. An update tonight on the investigation into the blowout incident on board an Alaska Airlines plane last month. According to investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board, bolts securing the door plug to the frame of a Boeing 737 MAX 9 were missing before the panel blew off. The preliminary report saying the bolts had likely been removed during a repair to the panel in September and not put back on. The repair had been completed by a crew from a supplier, Spirit Aerosystems. Federal investigators did not release an official cause of the incident. And a consumer alert. The CDC and FDA investigating a deadly listeria outbreak linked to queso fresco and cotija cheese. Health officials say 2 people have died and dozens more have been sickened nationwide. According to the CDC, cheeses manufactured by California-based company Rizzo Lopez Foods tested positive for listeria in January. A variety of products sold at major retailers includes Whole Foods. We move on now to power and politics. Tonight, voting underway in Nevada as the state holds its presidential primary election. Both Democrats and Republicans hoping to reel in support from the state's Latino voters. Latinos making up more than 30% of Nevada's population. The swing state now even more volatile as one of its key voting blocs becomes increasingly split. NBC's David Noriega explains.
North Las Vegas, zip code 89030. According to the census, the most Hispanic place in Nevada. 7 out of 10 people here are Latino.
Bienvenidos, bienvenidos.
And this is where many spend their weekends.
This is Broadacres. It's a huge flea market, swap meet, music venue. It's been here for decades, and it's really kind of the beating heart of the Latino community here in North Las Vegas.
Mario Alvarez immigrated from Jalisco, Mexico, more than 30 years ago.
There we go.
On the weeknights, he stocks supermarket shelves. On the weekends, he sells old video games.
The Super Nintendo? Yeah.
Alvarez voted for Biden. Now he's flirting with the other side.
Everything's too expensive. There's a lot of people who cannot afford food, rent, gas.
What do you think about Donald Trump?
You know, I think Donald Trump, he can be a good president for the country. But there's a lot of stuff.
he does wrong. I think he got so much hate for some people that he doesn't like it. He just want to be himself, me and me and me. But as far as to bring the economy with the country, I think he would be great.
Do you know who you're going to vote for?
Not yet.
Most Latino voters here are either Mexican immigrants or their children and grandchildren. They used to vote solidly Democratic, but that's changing. Trump made gains in 2020 in the 5 most Hispanic voting precincts in Nevada, all in North and East Las Vegas, just like he's making gains nationwide, now virtually tied with Biden among Latinos in our latest poll.
I voted for Obama twice, and Trump was the first Republican president I voted for.
Lydia Dominguez, who's from El Paso and moved to Vegas about 5 years ago, is all in for Trump. I asked her why she thinks more and more Latinos are joining her.
Because they see what's happening with our economy. They know what the gas prices were, even in 2020. We weren't born yesterday. We recognize that all of the immigrants coming in through our border is not helping. It's causing crime.
I grew up around the corner.
Erica Castro is a community organizer who grew up down the street from Broadacres Market. She'll be working this year to get out the vote for Biden, but she worries it might not be an easy lift.
I think for the last few decades, the Democratic Party has really said, you know, we're going to deliver on immigration. And that's been a big talking point for the Latino community. But I think for a lot of Latinos, they haven't seen Democrats deliver on immigration. They've actually seen things get a lot worse.
Democrats have historically been able to count on the Latino vote here in Nevada. Is that still true?
I think they're going to have to really work for it.
David Noriega joins us tonight from Las Vegas. David, so what trends are you noticing as you speak to Latino voters, and what has surprised you or at least sounded differently from other election cycles when you're talking to Latino voters?
Tom, really the main thing is how much people's votes are up for grabs in a way that they haven't been in past election cycles. It's really unpredictable. You have a lot of people who historically voted Democratic who are now not feeling particularly motivated to vote at all. And you have a lot of people, particularly among Latino men, who are seriously considering a vote for Trump, mostly because of the economy. Now, remember that Latinos are an important voting bloc, not just here in Nevada, but in several key swing states this year. Different Latino communities vote differently in different parts of the country, but there's a world in which the election in November is decided by which way the vote swings in some of these communities. Tom?
All right, David Noriega from the campaign trail for us. Coming up, the desperate search for a missing child in Gaza. A 6-year-old last heard from a week ago when she made an emergency call saying she was in a car and her entire family was killed. Rescuers unable to find her. The child's heartbroken mother now looking for answers as hope is dwindling. That story next. We're back now with a heart-wrenching story out of Gaza. A 6-year-old girl trapped in a car with 5 of her family members who were shot and killed as they tried to flee Gaza City. The child begging on the phone for someone to help her for hours, but she and the first responders who tried to come save her have now been missing for 8 days. A warning to viewers at home, you may find this hard to watch. NBC's Megan Fitzgerald has this story.
For more than a week, the family of 6-year-old Hind Rajab has been in agony. The terrified child last heard on this emergency call. Hind's mother had put the 6-year-old in a car with 6 other relatives to flee heavy fighting in Gaza City. Her mother says as the car left, Israeli forces opened fire on the vehicle. Everyone in the car killed, except for Hind and her 15-year-old cousin, Leon, who made the initial call for help. Her mother losing contact with Leon and fearing the worst. Hind staying on the line with the Palestinian Red Crescent operators for more than 3 hours. Telling them she was scared of the dark and pleading for someone to help her. The Red Crescent sent an ambulance to find Hind, but they lost contact with the drivers, Ahmed and Youssef, and no one has heard from them or the 6-year-old since. The IDF telling NBC News it's unfamiliar with the incident.
بعد ما الساعة 7 تقريبا فصل الخط وأنا بكلم فيها إحنا والهلال مكالمة جماعية وفصل الخط مع بنتي وفصل الخط. طبعا قصة الطفلة هند وليان هي واحدة.
The PRCS says Hind's call is one of the hundreds of calls their team receives daily, adding that anywhere the IDF has tanks is declared a military zone, requiring special permission to move in, even if there are civilians injured, unarmed, or trapped. Since the start of the war, about 75% of deaths have been children, and about 17,000 minors are unaccompanied or separated from their families. But Hind's mother still desperately clinging to the hope that her daughter will come home.
Please, give me a children, please, now, give me a children now.
Megan Fitzgerald, NBC News, London.
An incredibly sad story. Again, that was Megan Fitzgerald reporting for us. All right, we're going to take a look at what else is happening around the world. It's time for Top Stories Global Watch. Chile's former president, Sebastián Piñera, has died in a helicopter crash. In a statement, his office confirmed he was killed when the chopper crashed in the Los Rios region. According to the Chilean Interior Minister, 3 other people were on board, but they survived. It's unclear what caused the crash, but there was heavy rainfall in the area at the time. Piñera served as the Chilean president from 2010 to 2014 and again 2018 to 2022. That term included widespread protests over economic issues in Chile. Piñera was 74 years old. Okay, a deadly ice storm causing a travel nightmare in central China days before the Lunar New Year. This new video shows rescuers cutting through the debris of a trapped home to try and rescue people stuck inside. The storm also shutting down highways and causing mass flight and train cancellations across the region. And this comes during one of the busiest travel weeks there. At least 2 people have died. Cold temperatures are expected to continue over the next several days. And a health emergency has been declared in Brazil over rising dengue fever cases as Carnival season gets underway. Officials say there have been 10,000 reported cases of the mosquito-borne disease in Rio just since the beginning of January. Fumigators are spraying the highest affected areas. People are encouraged to use repellent and avoid any standing water. 2 million tourists are expected to visit Rio for Carnival this year. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.